I wanted to tell the story of how I got over my dad, and I know how that sounds, but if you are someone like me who, that was your coveted relationship your entire life, you understand what I'm talking about. So if that is of interest, stick around. I'm Azure. This is a naughty behaved puppy named Ozzy. You'll hear him jingling in the background, maybe shaking the camera. So if that's of interest, please stick around. Um, Let's try that again. I'm Azure, also known as the Fairy Coach Mother. I help survivors become overcomers and hopefully save years of time and thousands of dollars by leveraging the wisdom that I've gained on my healing journey. So, if that's of interest to you, please stick around. And if you like that vibe, please like and subscribe. Um, so, today I thought I would talk about how I got over my dad. So, and I know how that sounds, but it was a lifelong struggle for me, as with many people who have narcissistic parents and have undergone narcissistic abuse. So, to tell you a little background, so my dad was my more overtly abusive parent. He was a very complicated and interesting person. He was kind of like Goodwill Hunting. He uh, didn't go to school and was kind of a bad kid, but then there was a standardized test and he tested one of the highest in the state of Washington. And so he ended up going to the University of Washington and then subsequently to UC Santa Barbara and got a PhD in, or double PhD in electrical engineering and physics. So he was a brilliant person, but a very troubled person. He himself had been physically abused by his father. And, he also there was a lot of like dynamics around like gender roles, which isn't atypical for the time. Obviously, he was a baby boomer, and my grandma and and her husband, were from the kind of the greatest generation. So, there were classic gender roles from, this is like World War II times, right? So, um, so growing up, he was this, to me, uh, just almost like, I don't want to say Superman, but like there was this like um larger than life. That's not even the right term either. See, it's so complicated. He was someone who I respected because he was not only my father, but he also just seemed like very powerful. Um, he was clearly very intelligent, and he was very domineering, like in his approach at home. He was very uh, dictatorial, I guess, and domineering and stuff. So he was the relationship that I coveted the most, especially being a daughter. There's something about the father daughter relationship. And so he, uh, I just really wanted to kind of be loved by him, cherished by him, or at least respected by him. And honestly, none of those things, happened. But, um, you know, so growing up, uh, I I witnessed a lot of, violence between my parents, most, at his hand, basically. Like my mom would inadvertently do something that would make my dad mad, and then he would be violent, and I was sort of told to take care of my brother while my dad was busy abusing my mom. And, um, and then eventually my mom left, and she left when I was 12, and it was in secret. So we came home one day and she was gone. And she had left my brother and me there, which was uh obviously a huge thing, and a huge trajectory changing point in my life. um and she has her reasons for feeling like that was the appropriate thing to do. As a parent, I would never make that same choice, but that's a whole other video, I guess. So So then things got really unpleasant for me after that because I was expected to be my brother's mother, in the absence of my mom. And I was only a year and a half older than my brother. And so there were a lot of gender role expectations, and also a lot of my abuse had to do with like the way I looked. So I was weighed multiple times a day and my food was very controlled. I was made to compulsively exercise um and that type of thing. And that also there were very high academic expectations and a number of things. And so if I ever had a need for myself, I was basically told that I was selfish and I was called names on a daily basis, and that type of thing. Like I said in a previous video, like stupid was basically my first name in the house, and other, fatso and all those kinds of things. So I grew up like really wanting that love and respect. And then the way that it would manifest is like, it was like, okay, maybe if I, um, accomplish this at school, he'll finally love and respect me. Maybe if I, um, do this thing at work, he'll like love and respect me, or at least just respect me. I kind of gave up on the love thing, but it was like respect. I really wanted his respect because when you've been disrespected your entire life, you end up, you just really want someone to respect you. And it's like, maybe if I do this, then he can eventually see my worth. And so it was this prove yourself, prove yourself, prove yourself type of thing. And then what would, not only would this shape like all the decisions in my life, it's like what I did for what I chose for a major, what I did for work, just the amount that I worked, having side hustles and side businesses, the house that we bought, like all the things, it was like all with the underlying intention of trying to impress my dad and trying to finally earn his respect. Um, and when I got to that age where all my friends were getting married, that was a fun time and also a challenging time because when I would go to weddings and I would see dads walking their daughters down the aisle and the father daughter dance, or like if the dad made a speech and stuff like that, that would just kill me. Like I would cry like at every wedding, and I would cry after every wedding harder, because I yearned for that so much. And it's like, oh my gosh, like friends, you don't even know how lucky you are to have a dad that cares about you and that is able to demonstrate that they care about you, and to say things like, "Oh, I'm so proud of her," um, you know, blah blah blah. Like I never heard that once in my life. I never heard "I love you" once in my life from him. And um, so eventually what I ended up having to do is I did a ton of therapy, right? Like the way my trauma manifested was like I ended up having some major disordered eating issues. And then, so I was working on that and I did a ton of therapy, which, I'm a believer in. But I had always had this dream of writing a book. Like, I didn't know what type of book it would be, but I always dreamed of writing a book. And when I was on my own healing journey, I would read, I loved memoirs because I love reading real stories of what people have gone through and like wisdom that they've gained and like what helped them overcome their challenges and stuff. And I would read stories about disordered eating and overcoming that type of thing, and even, child abuse kind of things and overcoming that. And I was kind of frustrated because I felt like a lot of them glossed over the details, like the sordid details, and especially around things that are shameful, like disordered eating stuff. And I was like, dang it, if I could find a book that really went there, like I want to feel that seediness, that rawness that, that I feel. And I said, if no one else's, if I can't find this book, I'm going to have to write it myself. So I started writing my own book. and with the intention of, um, I don't know, just fulfilling that, goal, but more so because, these were my deepest, darkest secrets, like, it was a big thing to go from, like, going from, my very best friends didn't know about my disordered eating. My very best friends did not know about my abusive family. And so to go from like where your whole real life is a secret to like, let's write it down and share it with the world, that was a big gap to fill. But I did it, but it was with the intention of like, hey, if it could help someone else or a few other people or something, I would love that. So I wrote my memoir and it completely changed my life. There is something about memoir that is able to synthesize your experience and go from it living inside of you to now living on the paper. It was the best healing work I ever did. Therapy is great, um, but there was something about memoir and that to help it go from living in my body to onto paper. I don't know how else to explain it. It really just neutralized the charge. So, and I think the magic in that is like, I think memories that are traumatic, what they want is to be sort of like re-expressed, to almost like be chronicled, like as this is the truth of what happened, as like as instead of like, gosh, is that what happened or something? Like it's like they want to be made manifest or something. And then they dissipate, just like the emotions attached to it. It's like acknowledging that I felt this way, and then you can kind of like really feel into that emotion and then it dissipates. So so I did that, and, my I had always dreamed of like, okay, maybe one day, I could prove myself and my dad will get it. Um, and then I thought, okay, well, maybe when I'm older, when my life is established, I will have um, gotten this job and earn a certain amount of money and have be married and all that stuff. And there was something around being married that, like I kind of had this idea of like my grown up life, that maybe my dad and I will get along when I'm a grown up because a lot of teenagers don't get along with their parents, but then they eventually come back around and they do. Um, but, that's not necessarily the same for someone who is in an abusive family system, right? So, so then the dream became, well, maybe on his deathbed, he'll ask for me and he will say sorry and acknowledge the pain that he put me through. And I don't know, say some of the things that I really wanted to hear, that, one, that he was sorry, and two, that he did see my value and I don't know, cared about me on some level and that type of thing. But that didn't actually happen. He passed away, he passed away suddenly, and so I never got that moment, and I don't know that I would have gotten that moment even if he had had a different type of death. Um, and so um, what I did instead, and in fact, I strangely and prophetically, I kind of did this before he died because we were estranged. And I had to give myself the apology that he did would not give me, even if he had, done the whole deathbed thing, it probably wouldn't have been what I needed, it would have probably been too brief. It may have felt hollow. I've had this experience with um, other family members, where it's like you can coax some kind of acknowledgement out of them after a lot of emotional labor, but it feels hollow because they don't actually feel it. They're not really remorseful. They're not really feeling the empathy for the pain that they've inflicted and stuff. So, so essentially, I had to go into full fantasy mode and give myself the apology that he never would, to acknowledge all the things that I wished he acknowledged. The names he called me, the way he treated me, the list goes on and on, honestly. Um, so And then, all of that's in my book. And if that's of interest, I can link it in the description. That was the thing that changed my life, is writing that book. And now it's helping other people. It's actually used in some universities. So you don't need to write a book to heal, but it helped me too. And I want to take some of those learnings that I got from doing that to help you guys. And one of them is the using your imagination. Don't wait for your parents to give you the thing that you need. If they were abusive to you, I'm really sorry to say they're unlikely to give you what you need ever. And the sooner you can kind of come to that acceptance and start giving it to yourself, the better. And you have the power in your imagination. Like, you can give whatever apology or acknowledgement that you need to yourself. So once I did that and I got all of it out of my system, like all of the core memories that I have of abuse with my dad, and I gave myself that apology, that's what neutralized the charge. So now when I think about my dad, it's honestly very neutral. Whereas before, I couldn't even like say the word dad. Like, I would get water in my eyes. I'm not even kidding. Um, like, I had such charge around it. And now it's just, it's history. It's never going to not be part of my history, but it's not like so charged and it's not so alive anymore. So if I could do it, you could do it. So, my biggest advice would be to start writing, or it doesn't necessarily have to be writing. It could be like uh, recording a video of yourself or an audio of yourself, or art if you're a painter or drawer or something. But you have to there's something about the process of taking it from in your mind and your heart and putting it onto paper that that helps you transform it and to helps you neutralize that charge. Don't try to just do it up here and just scroll to the next video. Like, truly just do yourself a favor, open your notes app and spend a few minutes on there, or open your audio app, spend a few minutes on there. It doesn't take a ton of time. It just takes a few minutes at a time, and it can completely transform your life. So get yourself a dollar store notebook, open an app, and just spend a few minutes. I dare you to. That's your dare for this week, is to do that. And the truth is to write the truth of your experience. So I hope this helped. And if you have a situation with your dad, abusive father, or narcissistic father, and you'd love my take, please feel free to reach out. It can be anonymous if you like. My contact is in the description box. And if you feel like you could benefit from a one-on-one, I offer free complimentary one-on-ones to see if we'd be a good fit. And I hope this really helped you. My whole intent with all of this is to help shortcut your healing so it doesn't have to take you years and years and thousands and thousands of dollars like I've had to spend. So, best of wishes for your healing. Talk to you next time. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.